Welcome back to this series of discussion about database design. And today we are going to talk about what is cardinality ratio. So we know that when we have two entities, they can participate in a relationship. So how many instances of one entity participate in a relationship, or how many instances of both the entities participate in the relationship? That is called as cardinality ratio. Like, say, for example, we have an entity which is called tutor, and we have one more entity, and that is called as student. So now between tutor and student, there is a relationship called teachers. So tutor teaches student. Now, how many instances of one tutor can teach student? So one tutor can teach many students. So let me represent that as n. And one student can be taught by multiple tutors. So let me put it as m. So then this is a many to many relationship. So when you talk about relationships, we have three different type of relationships in place. The first one is one to one relationship. You can show it as 1:1, or you can say it as 1-to-1. The second one is going to be one to many relationship. So that is also can be shown as one to many. Now, the third thing is many to many relation. In this video, let us see examples for each of these, and knowing the cardinality ratio is very important before you draw the ER diagram. So once when you identify the entities and attributes, you should also identify the relationships. And while identifying the relationships, you should identify the cardinality ratio as well. Okay, so let us talk about an example of, let's say, person, home, or house. Okay, so now person can own house, correct? So one person can own how many houses? They can own many, but one house can be owned by one person. So if it is going to be a joint property, then in that angle, we can call it as many to many relationship. If you assume that a house is going to be owned by only one person, then it is going to be one to many. Okay. And also, when you talk about a relationship, and a relationship can have min max in your cardinality rather than just having a minimum. So, that is the next thing that we are going to talk about. Now I have cleared the board. So now, as I said, let us talk about just 1 second. Yeah. So now let us talk about the minimum and maximum in cardinality ratio. So let us take the same first example that we discussed before, which is going to be between tutor and the student. So when it comes to the min max relationship cardinality, so it will be in parentheses. So let us put it in parentheses. So one tutor can teach how many students in the minimum. So if there is a new tutor and the tutor is not assigned with any students each, does it mean that that person is not a tutor? No. So there could be tutors who do not teach students right now. So the minimum could be zero. And one tutor can teach how many students? That has no limit, so it is many. So now 0 comma n is your min max. So minimum a tutor can teach 0 students. He can teach maximum many students. And then coming on to, and also remember one more thing. When you put the cardinality, if you talk in a tutor's perspective, so one tutor is going to teach students, then you will put the cardinality on the student side and not on the tutor side. Now, thinking about the student perspective, one student can be taught by how many teachers? So, here again, if the student is a new enrollment and the student is assigned with a course which is not yet started, then it could be 0, and one student can be taught by many students. See, all these cardinalities are depending upon the requirement. In the previous example, when I said person owns a home and I said a home is owned or house is owned by one person, many would say no. A house can be owned by multiple people as a joint property. So it again depends on what your actual requirement is. If my requirement, if my scenario says one house will be owned only by one person, my cardinality is one. If my requirement says one house can be owned by multiple person, the minimum is going to be one, but the maximum could be multiple, then I would change my cardinality appropriately. So in that case, So in that case, if you see, one person can own minimum how many houses? Is there a mandatory thing that if there is a person, he should own a house? Not at all. So it will be 0. And when how many one person can own how many houses? There is no limit. So it is many. Now, coming from house to person, one house should be owned by minimum how many person? One. So, in if you think that one house can be owned by multiple people as a joint property, then the max is going to be many. So here the cardinality from person to house is 0 to many, and from house to person is 1 to many. So by this way, you can define cardinality with a minimum maximum proportion as well. And we just discussed about many to many and one to many. We do have one more type of relationship, which is one to one as well. So what example could we think about one to one? Okay. So I am just thinking about it. Let us talk about person and the fingerprint of a person. So let us say I have an entity called a person and I have an entity called fingerprint. So one person has fingerprints. So one person can have minimum maximum both to be just one unique set of fingerprints, and one fingerprint can at most belong to only one person. So if you are using the min max thing, this is how you would represent it. If it is just going to be one way, it is you will just say one and one in both the side. This is an example of one-to-one relationship. So in this video, we just saw what is cardinality ratio, and we had examples of one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many to show how it is represented as cardinality ratios. In addition, we also discussed about how you would represent min-max in cardinality ratio. I hope you will be clear with it. In the next video, we will talk about a crowfoot notation, one of a popular notation used in representing cardinality ratios in the ER diagram. So I'll see you soon in the next video and stay tuned. Bye.